Welcome back to another episode. Today, I want to talk about induction cookers. Let's get on with it. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the inherent bias in my opinion of induction cookers. Now, I make money from cooking on fire. I make money from other people cooking on fire through brand deals and merch sales and book sales and all that kind of stuff. That's how I make a living. So while I'm going to try and remove that as much as humanly possible from this discussion, I just want to acknowledge it, okay? You can, at the end of this episode, make up your own mind about whether I was biased or not, but I'm gonna try not to be. Before we start this episode properly, I just want to say there's going to be a code word somewhere in the episode, and I'm going to give away one of my books to a random commenter. So comment down below with the code word, and I'll get in touch with you if I select you. And if you send me the email, I will send you out a book and some patch and some stickers and stuff. Let's start off with how induction cookers cook. Now, I'm not going to be comparing induction cookers directly to fire and gas the whole time. I'm going to talk about them holistically with all of the other options. So how do induction cookers cook? Are they good for cooking? Well, yeah, they're pretty good. I don't particularly like the way that they power on and off and sort of pulse for low heat. I prefer an even thing, but that's just a getting used to it kind of thing. I'm sure it gets really normal, and I'm sure it makes no real difference. A lot of chefs I've seen use them, and they use them with great success. Sorry, there are a few marsh flies around. I still prefer the flame of a gas burner, or obviously a fire is my favourite. But they are effective. They are very effective. They're not as versatile as a fire in that you can't do things like cook roast vegetables in an induction cooker because it doesn't have that all-round heat which you can get on a camp oven, for example. It is as effective as a gas cooker in that sense. So how do they cook? They're pretty good. They're comparable to a gas cooker. They can get pretty bloody hot if you have enough power to power them. And I'm going to get onto power later on. We'll save that for later when we're actually talking about who should be using these things. Ease and simplicity. Now, there is no denying they are, aside from an already plumbed in, even then I think they're easier than a plumbed in gas cooker on a camper trailer. They are remarkably easy. You just plug it in, no gas bottles, no gas lines, no refilling of gas. It's just, you don't have to store a bottle. If you have a power source, you can plug it in. Now, if you camp a lot at caravan parks and you camp at a powered site, there aren't many better options than an induction cooker. You don't need a refill. You're not even paying for the power. You've got a constant source of it next to you. It's a pretty bloody good option, and they're very inexpensive. Completely windproof. No denying it. I'm not really talking about caravan parks though. I'm talking about your off-grid situations. For your off-grid situations, I've used them in the bush, and they are really, really simple. If you want to pull up on the beach and quickly cook yourself some bacon and eggs in the morning, I don't think that there is a better option that exists. You don't have to, as I said, you don't have to check anything. You don't have to check the levels of your gas. You don't have to rig up lines. You don't have to carry a whole bunch of little bottles. That's where induction cookers truly come into their own, is the simplicity and the ease. And I respect them for that. Next, let's talk about cost. And I don't mean the cost of the cooker. Induction cookers range from $50 to $300, which is very similar to the kind of price range of a gas cooker. They range from kind of $10 for your little Bunnings one through to, you can easily pay $1,000 for a high quality gas cooker that's windproof and that sort of thing. And back on the windproof thing, there are gas cookers that are pretty well windproof. The Hyper Flames, I believe. Coleman, I'm not the person to know models of gas cookers, but I believe they are pretty bloody windproof. And I've seen them in some pretty bad environments and they did very well. That is very close to my car. Well, it touched my front wheel. Yeah, okay. That's not so much where the cost of an induction cooker comes in. Induction cookers cost minimum kind of $7,000 in my mind. And that's because you need a serious lithium setup. You can try running it on lead acid or AGM or something, but my word, you need a serious amount of power and space and weight, and that is not worth it. So you need a pretty expensive lithium setup. I don't really think you can get away with under 200 amp hours, because realistically it's 80 to 120 amp hours to cook a meal on induction. And I'm not talking about a sophisticated meal, I'm talking about pasta. That's just how much it uses. So you want a buffer. So you need a couple of 100 amp hours, then you need some sort of a good DC-DC charging system. That's going to cost you, quite a few $100. You need to get it all installed. You need a pretty serious inverter, minimum 2,000 watts. Really, you need 2,500 to 3,000 if you want to run a double induction cooker, and that is going to cost you, for a high quality one that you can actually rely on, is going to cost you, in the thousands easily. You also need a way of replenishing it if you're not driving, and that is going to be through solar. And to replenish something where you're running lithium, I don't think you'd really get away with under 500 watts. Not to do it in any way reliably. So with this really quite expensive setup, I mean, the setup in this is probably about 10 grand, my electrical setup, and I can't run an induction cooker. I can run it on low power, and I couldn't run it for that long, but I can't really run an induction cooker on this. I'd need a bigger inverter, and I'd really need a bigger battery. It'd be an extra kind of $1,500 on top of this to get to have set up this system to run induction. So who do I think these things suit? Well, I think they suit two main categories. Number one are the fully decked out, got all the fruit and love to drive kind of cars. I'm talking about your 200 series or your 79 series, and the guys who just like to, or your Y62s, they're getting pretty decked now. The guys who like to make good time, and they like to drive every day. If you drive every day, you don't need to worry about solar setups. If you drive every day, you don't need to worry about your ability to put power back in, because you're going to use it. You wake up in the morning and you're going to head off. When you've headed off, you'll recharge while you drive. It means, yeah, as I say, you don't need to worry too much about solar. You can have a smaller battery, get away with like 150 amp hour. You get away with, or you still need a big inverter, but I mean, essentially this car could do it if I drove a lot. The other category of people that I think it suits are your grey nomads or family touring, in caravans specifically. I'm talking about the people who have your sort of 6, 9, 1200 watts on the roof of solar and 400 amp hours of battery and a big inverter anyway, so they can run their aircon. Those kind of people, why wouldn't you have an induction cooker chucked in there? They're $50. It's a great way to just quickly cook inside or quickly whip something up in a storm or a windy environment, and it's really going to barely touch the sides of your battery capacity and your recharge capacity. Look, sure, if you're parked in a shady spot, it's pretty rubbish. But particularly if you're plugged in a caravan park, that's where it really comes into its own. So I really think that, why wouldn't you use a free heat source as opposed to gas, which you have to pay for? That makes a lot of sense to me. Those kinds of people having it. The category that I don't think should be using induction cookers is basically everyone else. And the reason I say that is, what I mean by that is the people who do a lot of weekenders or a lot of base camping, and you do your 1 week trip twice a year with the kids, and you set up and you put your cheap solar panel out, and you've got an AGM in the car, or maybe even a small lithium, to go and spend a fortune on a battery setup and a big inverter and a whole bunch of extra solar, because you're going to need like serious amounts of solar. I can put the maths on the screen for how much solar you're going to need roughly. But to replenish like 100 amp hours a day with the loss involved in solar. Bloody bees and march flies. You are going to need to spend a lot of money, and then all that has to happen is it's a cloudy day and you don't have solar, and you're going to be running the car and swearing at this induction cooker that you spent a fortune on. Just buy a second gas bottle, and you fill it up twice a year, and it's going to cost you $25 of fill, and it's just not going to matter. Otherwise, I really do believe you're fixing a $50 problem with $5,000, or $10,000 more likely. So yeah, look, I have in my camper trailer 200 amps of lithium, 2000 watt inverter, and I've got 732 watts of solar. I could run I could run induction on my camper if I wanted to. Even if I wasn't fire to fork, I still wouldn't, just because just using stuff like lots of chargers and wanting to run some extra lights and things like that, you already notice it when you have 2 cloudy days in a row. Can't imagine pulling half my battery capacity out just to cook dinner. Now, there are other personal things about this that I just don't like. I don't think it's good at infusing flavour. I don't think that it's social, sitting around an induction cooker. I don't like the noise of it. I don't like how poorly it transfers to different cooking methods. So like, what do you have it on? Like 600, 1,000, 2,000, whatever. That doesn't really, it's not a good indication compared to the good old-fashioned dial or putting your hand over something and things like that. And I just think it sterilizes being out in the bush. I think it's too much tech. I think it's kind of like going out to the bush and watching Netflix on an iPad under an LED light, as opposed to sitting around a fire and chatting. That's how I see it. Ignoring that personal aspect, as a heat source, I think it has a place, but I think it's overused, and I think people are going on about it too much, and I think people are spending too much money on something that they haven't thought through fully, especially when it comes to putting power back into the system. Anyway, thanks for watching. Remember to comment the code word down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.